Welcome to Intimacy Evolution, the podcast that helps you enjoy deeper connection and more intimacy in your relationships. I'm Rina Trevi, relationship and intimacy coach, and together with my husband Mark, a licensed professional counselor, we're here to help couples create the relationships they crave. Relationships evolve over time, and that's okay. Let's talk about it. All right, welcome Rina Trevi to Intimacy Evolution. I am very excited to delve into this conversation and learn about your journey and the incredible work that you do. So please tell us who you are and how you got into Shibari and Tantra.
Oh, yes, amazing to be here in this Intimacy Evolution episode because the name speaks for itself. It's just really up my alley. My life is all about intimacy and exploring different levels and layers of intimacy with oneself and others and the world around us, of course. But let me introduce myself a bit more officially now. So, my name is Rina Trevi, and I'm a vulnerability and intimacy guide. And my path has been long and exciting as I started back in post-Soviet Russia and moved to the United States about 20 years ago. And initially I pursued a classic career path and I was working in the office, and that got me burned really fast. And I started to look for something completely unconventional, and I became a professional dominatrix. And so after a decade of being a pro dom, I started to go deeper into the spirituality and tantra as I was traveling a lot to the Eastern world. And this is where I went to spiritual retreats and studied under different teachers. And fast forward, I integrated all of this together, bringing elements of tantra, intentionality, and rituals into BDSM play. And these days, my offerings are Shibari journeys. And Shibari is a Japanese art of tying. It's about creating a safe cocoon with ropes for someone to experience and explore themselves fully, for someone to be free in their feelings and moods and expressions and ideas. And that offers people this playground of self-exploration. And this is one of my favorite offerings. And the other one is tantric bodywork, which is about accessing a full potential of the body. Bodies are really wise and beautiful, and so often we use it only 10% of what's really possible, and we don't trust it and we don't feel it, we don't inhabit ourselves. So my tantric bodywork practice is about bringing oneself fully into the body so you can experience the wisdom and pleasure within the body, because our bodies are capable of a lot of pleasure, including multiple orgasms. And this is what I love to share with women: how to be multi-orgasmic, how to be touched, what kind of touch we like, what do we want, exploring our desires and boundaries. So these are my ceremonial offerings, and I'm also coaching and teaching people in different ways in this direction of exploring vulnerability and intimacy.
Oh my gosh. I'm loving all of this already, and I know that we can delve so much deeper. So let's start with the dominatrix era of Rena. When you got burnt out from corporate world and you transitioned into being a pro dominatrix, what guided you there? What was it about that experience that kept you there for so long? And then what was your transitional period? When did you decide I want to do something different?
I did not stay there for too long. It was a long pursuit of it because back in Russia, we were
Okay.
glamorizing that. We thought this is it. This is when you made it. This is when you are living American dream, which meant that you spend an hour in traffic and then next 8 hours in a cubicle and then 2 weeks of vacation per year. So it was really not my jam at all. And I was falling asleep with those Excel spreadsheets, and I was thinking, why did I get my MBA? Is this all there is? Like, really, we pursued this education and this career path to be somewhere where it's just so soulless and lifeless. And it did not feel right to me at all. And my body was in so much resistance. I was like falling asleep all the time. So I had a moment of protesting. Like, I felt like that's it. I want to rage against that. I want to go against that. And life found me an alternative, which was exactly where my pendulum of being good and normal just went into the opposite direction of going as unconventional as it could get, as becoming a professional
Mm.
dominatrix. And that exposed a whole different side of American life, which meant that a lot of the same corporate executives and business people, of people working in finance, they would be my clients, and they would show a completely different sides of themselves, where they want to be vulnerable, where they want to play taboo role games. And I was initially shocked but amazed, but what we're hiding underneath our skin, all the fantasies and desires that
Mm.
people have. And that felt more real than this office world. Like, of course, I didn't want to claim that that's who they ultimately are, but something felt a lot more raw and true and real about the way they would share themselves to me, and also making me feel really privileged that I am the only one who gets to see that
Mhm.
side. So often they would hide it from their partners, from their friends, from their therapists, and I would be the one who would be welcome into the most secret places of their psyche, and their most taboo desires. So
Yeah.
something felt great about being like admitted in that secret world of the shadows of the dungeons and
Mm.
different taboo fantasies, the forbidden places. It felt so captivating. But eventually that started to become the norm. And I started to
Mm.
search for more. I started to inquire, what's the meaning behind these fantasies? Why they want to be humiliated and tortured? Why this role plays? And parallel to that, I had a chance to travel a lot to the Eastern world and spend every winter pretty much outside of New York, to in India and Thailand. And this is where I studied psychology,
Mm.
spirituality, philosophy. And I would inquire from different angles, the whole point of going of BDSM fantasies and fetishes. And I started to learn more and understand my clients better. I would start changing my practice really gradually, implementing more holistic approach, more inquiry, more rituals, more connection to breath. And that started to slowly transform my practice and attract certain clients who are on
Mhm.
board with evolution, not just going again for the same fantasy and exploring the same way, but instead, like, using it in service of something greater, so that our exploration supports their life journey in general. It does not go against it, it's not an escape, but it's a way to dig deeper and to understand and to reflect and to infuse life with more meaning and with more harmony. So it became more
Mhm.
intentional very gradually, until there was a final breaking point when I chose to entirely exit the industry, to close my dungeon in Manhattan. I was in the peak of my career. I was really like well known, a successful dom, and I had a beautiful space, and that was hard for me, but it felt like that's the next point of my evolution, to really move away from the whole idea
Mm.
of being a dominatrix. And this is how, in my soul searching, I finally found that I want to be a vulnerability and intimacy guide, because being a dom, it's exploration of
Mhm.
vulnerability. And the title dominatrix, of course, connects us with a lot of whips and chains and taboos and sexual perversions. While being a vulnerability and intimacy guide,
Right.
it's not necessarily about that. It encompasses that, but it's a lot bigger. It has a more holistic touch to it, which attracts these days, as I offer Shibari journeys. So it's a little kind of niche, and from BDSM standpoint, it's like one of the angles of it. But at the same time, it goes way
Mhm.
beyond BDSM, because people come to me these days not because they have a kinky fantasy, but they go more for a ceremonial journey, for a journey of self exploration, for an intentional experience of
Mhm.
surrender and trust, for processing something traumatic that happened in their past. So there are all kinds of intentions, and I get to see more women as clients these days. So it's not really about men who is attracted to me anymore. It's a lot deeper than that. So I feel like
Mhm.
the majority of my clients now tend to be women, and a lot of women want to
Yeah.
experience that cocooning, that being tied up. So yeah, this is a brief synopsis of my dominatrix transitioning to to Shibari world journey.
Yes. Okay. So I'm gonna take a second here because I there's so many avenues that I want to touch on here. Um, one of my questions was, did you primarily see more men during your dominatrix work
Oh yeah.
versus women? And now you're saying you see more women, so that makes sense, especially as you were bringing in your spirituality and the psychology and tantra work back into your dominatrix practice, what were you noticing about your clients that were coming in? Yes, it's can working with a dom is fun and kinky and it can just be, I think a lot of people perceive it as just a very sexual experience. It's for sexual gratification, whereas I think both of us know it can also be a healing process as well. Were you noticing that as you were coming back to, bringing the spirituality into it? Were you noticing like, oh, they're just working through some stuff in their life that is unresolved or has been repressed and are you I'll let you
Mm.
answer that and then I'll go on to the next one.
Well, sexual gratification is definitely there in the world of professional domination. And yeah, there's no sex involved with clients. It's just done in a way that they get to do it all over themselves. But there is like this turn on and desire
Yeah.
to get off. And yet, it gets, if it's the only goal, it gets boring. Like, how much can you get off? Really, like, how much more
Mm.
to that? Like, is this all you want to just have an itch and scratch it? So I feel like it comes slowly to everyone who is practicing it. The bigger why, the bigger understanding of questioning. What's the
Mm.
what am I really looking through that? And why am I even attracted? Like why vanilla sexuality is not enough? Why I have this fetish? Why I have this kink? So that question would often come
Yeah.
to us, and then we would see like, oh, there is some process we are working through something. There is something that is feels connected to love from our childhood, to safety from our childhood. Or perhaps there's some rupture in our childhood where something didn't go according to plan. And now somehow it's like intertwined in our sexual fabric, and our sexuality is a voice of our
Mhm.
subconscious. And, this voice of subconscious is usually calling for closeness and intimacy and love, but it can be also intertwined with so many other ways that we perceive the intimacy and safety and love based on our upbringing and culture. So that started to become more interesting to see what people work
Yeah.
through, and then for them as well as for me. So I felt like a natural evolution just to go from, okay, let me scratch my itch. I'd never done it. Let me try it once. And then if you want to do it again, then you start already questioning, okay, then what else is out there? And then you start paying
Mhm.
attention to aesthetic side of things, emotional side of things, the energy exchange, because we know with one person things flow one way, with the other person something different comes into play. So it would become like a
Yeah.
very exciting, curious, extraordinary.
Mm. Yeah. Okay, I really wanna, like, zoom in on Shibari and Tantra, and you said that primarily you work with women, and you said it's more of a safety, it's like it feels very nurturing. Yeah, can you, I'm just kinda reflecting back on when Mark and I had met you 2 years ago at a couples retreat, and you were, demonstrating Shibari on one of the other participants, and it was, um, a guy who had some trauma from childhood and, um, binding him with the ropes and then also using your body to move him allowed him to feel safe. And, like, it was I can't describe it. It was just it was very emotional. We could all feel it that he was definitely working through something within himself. So what um, hmm, yeah, I don't know. I know there's somewhere that, like, this you can take
Yeah.
it, like, this is your expertise. So, yeah, go
Yeah,
from
a lot
here.
of people have different associations about ropes, like the idea of either being forced and trapped and like some sadism involved, or like someone is being used for sexual purposes. So there can be a lot
Mm.
of negative associations with ropes, and that's why it can be quite
Yeah.
surprising to see my method of offering safe space to be yourself through ropes. So it's all
Yeah.
about intention and the energy that I bring into the space as we can feel it. Like we can see,
Mhm.
you can sense like if there is a guy approaching you, if he has this kind of energy of like, oh, let me get something from you, you can feel it without words. And then if someone comes to it's like, hey, I'm
Mhm.
just here with you. I need nothing from you. I'm just here and I want to give you all my attention. That's a different type of energy, even without words. So similarly with rope
Yeah.
bondage, right away I start from my interaction with someone, especially someone new, with going really slowly and tying, even
Mm.
if I don't speak, would be the kind of tie that invites unconditional presence. Like I'm just here and you can be 100% yourself. And that together with this literal feeling of rope just wrapping you, cocooning you, and we are breathing through it together. There's also this awareness of breath that brings us into the present moment, into the body. And the rope just invites you, like, hey, connect with yourself. I'm here to support you in your own experience. And you can be anything you want to be right now. So that type of energy
Mm.
behind the rope, behind the one tying, is what invites someone to just release and let go. And it's usually very potent for men because many men are always in the mode of, I'm the doer, I'm the achiever, I need to be the man, the right one. And this type of experience allows men to feel that, wait a minute, I have feelings, I have emotions, I have fears, I
Mm.
have memories, I have desires, and all of this is welcome. Like, really? Like, I can just experience it and
Yeah.
expose it, and I'm safe. So, yeah, this is what happens usually in initial moments of tying when someone recognizes when they're tied that this is not done in a selfish way, that nothing is expected from them. That someone who is tying, they just know what they're doing because after doing it for a few years, I get to know how to manipulate body and play with ropes that use certain
Mm.
type of tension that is enough for them to feel the strength of this restraint, but also at the same time not to be
Yeah.
overwhelmed, not to feel like rope is just burning and pinching their skin. So it's just finding that perfect
Mm.
balance of strength and compassion, of tension and lightness. So in being right in the middle where they can feel like, wow, she's got me. She knows how she's doing, and I can just relax. I can just release. And it's also understandable why
Yeah.
my work attracts now more women, because for women, it feels already culturally more acceptable and natural. Like for women to be in their fluidity and feminine and emotionality, and for women to cry is a lot more acceptable than for men. So I can see for women, it's a
Mm.
lot more openly desirable experience. Well, for many men, there can be more
Yeah.
resistance, like, oh, I am the man, I'm the one who is doing things. And I'm not into this kink. I'm not
Mm.
this kind of submissive guy who wants to be tied up. I'm not that. So sometimes it takes me some time to
Mm.
explain that, okay, we're not playing that submissive game. I'm not the mistress now.
Right. Yeah. Um, and I'm just, like, thinking on some of the videos I've seen you share on your socials and stuff, and how you do kind of put them in some, like, precarious, like, positionings, but they look so peaceful. I'm like, "How do you know when to put, like, their arm up this way or
Mm,
you do this," and sometimes you do suspension but it is that you can tell that there is a surrender and their body, like, they're peaceful, or sometimes, they do have emotions come through. It's not a control. It's not a, you know, I'm doing this to you. It's I'm supporting you in this experience and this is for you, and just like your presence and your attunement to each person that you're working with is incredible. And my question is, with women, primarily coming to you, and do you see that it's because they are holding a lot of masculine energy in their
Mhm.
life, and they're trying to learn how to surrender and embody their femininity, and, what are some things that you see common
Yeah.
for women that
No,
you
you're
work with?
spot on. It's exactly right. A lot of women are successful women in their lives, which may be successful mothers, like being good mother. It's a lot of work.
Mm,
And a lot of women are tired of being constantly in the caretaking role of others. A lot of women are also business women, and they're also tired of carrying a lot of burden and responsibilities on their shoulders. So these are the women that
mhm,
particularly appreciate the Shibari journey. But it's not just that. A lot of women come for exploration of trust and surrender and boundaries. And a lot of women also feel
yeah,
sexy in ropes. Like there's something about being tied up in different positions and having pictures taken. Yeah, there is a full spectrum of why women would come to this experience. Sometimes intentions can be not so obvious. There can be a lot more refined. There is something more deep and subtle that just intuitively brings them to that experience. And then we start digging, like,
mhm,
okay, let's see, what is it that really drives your soul to come here? What is your deepest calling? And it
yeah,
would be something more refined, like, I feel like my creativity is trapped somewhere and I cannot access. I've been too cerebral. I want to connect to the source
mm,
of my creative power, to my creatrix within myself. Guide me in it. And of course,
mm,
it's nothing I can manufacture through my own will, but their intention alone is ends up guiding our journey. And all I'm doing is tying them in my intuitive flow from one position to the other. And the journey that they get to have is like an extension of their intention for this experience.
yeah, as you were saying that, I was also having the thought of, like, um women that are carrying a lot or holding a lot or have not explored their pleasure as much, or maybe they're just a little disconnected from their body and w- feeling. And so, being that they are wrapped in rope, they can't really do anything else except for be in their body and feel what that rope is, the pressure and the, texture
Yeah.
and all of the things that are being applied, like, they have to be present
Yeah.
in that moment because, I mean, how long is an experience when
Tell
you're
you, it's yeah, about 3 hours to the have a rope journey, but we start slowly with tea ceremony with some rituals before that, and then we have some aftercare time. So
Mhm,
it ends up being like half a day we spend together. And yeah, often that's also one thing to mention, that once we're tied up, we start experiencing things that we don't want to experience, meaning that we escape ourselves in certain ways. And I can imagine most of us
mhm,
can relate. Like, there are certain things about me, about my feelings, that I just don't like. For example, like, I don't like to feel frustrated and grumpy. And usually I hide that part. Like, I usually want to be a happy, joyful, compassionate, bubbly person. And
mhm,
sometimes I just feel grumpy and frustrated, annoyed, irritated, and I don't like that side of myself. So that means that when I'm tied up, very often that side of me comes through first. But I have no choice but to
mm,
experience, because once I'm in ropes, there is no escape for myself. Like, okay, it is what it is. Here
yeah,
it comes. Let me just surrender to it. And then I get to really get my grumpiness, total freedom, and just make some ugly noise and like,
mhm,
and like just reveal that wild side of me, and like an animal that is trapped and
yeah,
frustrated and angry. So I get to feel it in a more creative way, as opposed to, because when we're in social settings and we feel grumpy and frustrating, it's hard to find an outlet. Like, how can you be appropriate? And here you don't have
right,
to be appropriate. Like, that's the point. When you are in ropes,
yeah,
you just get to be yourself in ugliness, beauty, and there is no more of this judgment, what's ugly and what's beautiful. But in
mm,
fact, being authentic ends up being beautiful in ropes. And that's also a joy for me as a practitioner, to watch people reveal their authentic side and show
mm,
them things that they wouldn't show. This is the commonality of being a dom, by the way, and a Shibari practitioner, because
yeah,
this, in both cases, I get to see a side of themselves that they would rather hide from themselves and the world. And I find that side to be the beautiful
Mm,
side. There is always something precious in that vulnerability of them exposing their anger or exposing their longings and fears and tears.
yeah.
It's something very human and that makes us feel together because when they get to expose like some
Mm,
deep feminine pain of something that is not even personal, like it's just something that is in the air and in the collective, and we all feel united by the times we felt somehow mistreated, not honored, not appreciated, and then I can feel it with them, and I often tend to cry even in the midst of session with my client, just because the energy is like, wow, I can
yeah.
feel this energy and it touches me. And I don't know your story, but somehow something is together in it. So yeah, that togetherness of this experience makes it feel.
Oh, I love that. And it's like we tell ourselves these stories that people only like us for this certain part of us. And so we constantly show that side and suppress this other part of us. And when, like you said, they're in ropes, there's no escaping it. You get to be your full self, whether you want to or not. Like, and there's so much power. It's so empowering to be vulnerable and expressing your whole self.
Yeah, and to be welcomed,
You don't
like
have
to
to
have
be.
zero judgment
Yes,
around. Because it's easy to shut yourself down. You
yes.
express yourself vulnerably, and someone's like, come on, no negativity here, only good vibes. And then, like, you feel shut down and you
Right.
cannot. And then you have another message that something is wrong with you and your natural self. And yeah, in ropes, there
Yeah.
is no more of this morals and taboos, and you can just vent things and say how much you hate yourself and others, and like, or how much you love someone.
Mhm.
Like anything is allowed, and I feel there is a beauty in this human expression where this duality of judgments are out of.
Yeah. Oh, can you touch on what aftercare is and what that looks like after, a Shibari experience?
Yeah, aftercare is like a bridge from the world of being in the journey into the world of being in real life. So it's kind of similar to psychedelic experience, just coming back, like transitioning back into the habitual world. And sometimes it can feel shocking and abrupt, like, wow, isn't this magical wonderland? And now the reality kicks back in, and I'm full of schedules and to-do lists. So my job is to create a nice and easy transition where I offer more care and nourishment and support, where, for example, we can either cuddle or I can prepare a hot bath, or we can have some tea and some
Mm,
sweets together, or maybe a heavy weighted blanket. So different little tools, but also like my attention, presence, and energy where I'm
mhm.
being in the nourishing mood and the nourishing energy around, basically. And just taking as much time as needed for someone to recover from a journey and feel easy and safe to transition back into their home, into their streets, into the city, all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm just thinking just in, partnership in general, hear from couples we work with or women that I support and stuff that sometimes after, a sexual experience, it can be a little bit jarring because then it's just like, "Okay, we're done." And it's like aftercare can apply in all areas, and so just kind of bringing awareness to that, like, if you feel that jarringness to your system, what would feel good to you after a deeply connective experience with your partner? And talk to them about
Yeah, our nervous
that.
system likes slow transitions in general for anything in life. We don't want to have abruptness that we wake up and we get going right away. No, wake up slowly. Like tell yourself something sweet. Like
Yeah.
really give yourself the luxury of slow transitions in life and whatever you do, for like from sleeping to waking. Also the same from when you're awake and you want to go back to go to sleep at night. Like, no, okay, lights are out and I'm sleeping. No,
Yeah.
make slow rituals. Give yourself some nourishment, like support yourself. Transitions can feel wobbly for the system in any form, like whatever. you're doing. And yeah, definitely for lovemaking, I feel like most people at this point, at least around me, understand that there can be just abrupt, like a guy finished and that's it. And now he's snoring. Of course, this is a gross
Yeah, that's
assumption.
the end. And yeah, yeah. So, as we kind of like round this out, what are some tips or suggestions you can offer our listeners that maybe want to start implementing this a little bit? I know this is a very specific practice and you have done a lot of training for this, and I highly recommend, like, again, I'm going to put all of Rena's information in the notes, so definitely reach out to her if you're wanting to work more with her, which I recommend. And what are some things that they can maybe start doing in their own relationship at home? How can they kind of like
Mm.
baby step? Okay.
So, when it comes to implementing some ideas that I usually practice in my vulnerability and intimacy guidance, I feel like it all comes down to creating more unconditionality and safety for couples, especially when it comes to intimacy, like not to come to each other from a place of building
Mm,
lust and desire, but more about bringing safety to be yourself. Because, expecting lust and desire to drive your intimacy all the time is unrealistic. Like, there's no
mm,
way that you are always in that mood where you're full of desire and passion. Like, no, it's not realistic at all. And if we just expect and anticipate that to be present, like, we'll be disappointed because life is happening and we have different phases and seasons and moods. So I always love to share with couples that the point is to create space for unconditional intimacy, and that can be holding each other during emotional times, listening to someone when they have some frustration, and hugging each other without expectations. Like, I blossom the deepest in the arms of lovers who were unconditional with me. Like, that's when my body really relax. So really building more trust and relaxation
mm,
as opposed to building more lust and desire. And I feel like that's exactly what brings us to a place of vulnerability and intimacy and
yeah.
surrender and belonging. A sense that everything is all right with me. I can just be myself. I don't need to be a certain way. There's no pressure to perform or be a certain way. And I feel like that's the best key to a deeper intimacy, is
Mm,
to meet each other exactly where you're at, not where you imagined yourself to be, not how it used to be on the first date or honeymoon season, but exactly where you are these days. And the second suggestion would be to explore more, to try new things, to take things
yeah.
outside of your habitual box and try something different. Try yourself in a different role. Try some tools. Try to change scenery and try it in different place. So, yeah, intimacy can evolve quite far if one is willing to create more safety and to explore new directions, new dimensions.
Oh my gosh, I love this. I'm so grateful that you are here today and sharing this. I love bringing just new things to our audience for them to explore, and I just really appreciate you and the work that you're doing. And can you please tell our audience where they can connect with
Mm.
you, and if there's anything special that you'd like to share with them, like any offerings or anything?
Yeah, find me at vulnerabilitycoaching.com. Easy to remember, but let's just put it in show notes, as well as my social media. My IG is Rina_Trevi. We're just going to drop it here. And please don't hesitate to reach out if something resonated with you or if you have some questions. I have a variety of offerings, starting from private tuition and sessions, as well as educational coaching containers, as well as various groups. And yeah, please connect with me. I'm happy to stay connected with those who share similar aspirations and goals. And I know that your vibe attracts your tribe. So if it resonated and clicked with you, I'm happy to have you here in my community.
Thank you so much, Rina. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the work that you do. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And we will see you next week.